Hello, hello. It is Coach Reba. We are here with lesson 1-3, which is multiplying decimals. So make sure you start by setting up your Cornell notes, number your page, go ahead and transfer it over into your table of contents. And then you are ready to go. Today, we are going to skip, we're not going to write out our learning target, but our learning target for today is that we want to know the steps for multiplying decimals. So by the end of today, you will be able to multiply any two numbers, whether one of them has a decimal in it or both of them has a decimal in it. We're going to be able to figure out what our answer needs to be. So we're going to start off today right off the bat with our steps. Now I know there's a lot of writing over on this right side. You don't have to write every single thing over here. I want you to make sure that you write the steps, but I might simplify some of them, so don't think, oh my gosh, and give up now because there's so much writing, because I will simplify it for you. Okay, so what we are going to do is they're going to show us the steps in this example, and they're going to show us through this problem. So we're going to we are going to start with 1.8 times 2.35, and they're going to take us over on the side over here. That's all of the steps, and they're showing us as they're telling us what step it is. So the first one over here, step number 1. And step number 1 says that you need to write the numbers or the factors vertically, placing the number with the most digits on top. So now this one, actually, we need to know pretty much the whole thing. I'll highlight it here, what you need to write. You need to write them vertically, and the one with more digits on the top line. So now you can see where they did that over here on the side, because 2.35 has 3 numbers in it and 1.8 only has 2. So 2.35 had to go on top, and we can't put the one with smaller on top because that's not going to work. Step 2 says multiply the numbers, and we are going to ignore the decimal this time. So this is very different from the past 2 lessons that we've done, because today we just get to ignore the decimal when we go ahead and do our multiplying. So I'll show you how they do that over here on the right. On the right, they're pretending like those decimals don't exist. So you'll see over here, they start like how we normally would multiply. So if this is our problem right here, we start with the 8, and we do 8 times 5, and they got 40, and so they don't show their work here very well, but we carry our 4 and we put our 0 down there. 8 times 3 is 8, 16, 24, plus that 4 that I had is 28. So now we carry that, and then 8 times 2 is 16, plus our remainder of 2 that we had there is 18. So that's how they got this whole line right here, is from multiplying that 8 times all the numbers up above. Now we have to do the same thing with the 1 that is next to the 8, and I'll point to that. So we're starting now, we're looking at the 1. Now 1, we go from right to left, so 1 times 5, and I'll show you where they did their placeholder here too, because that's really important. So first we had to put our placeholder 0 right there, and then they did 1 times 5 and got 5. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 2 is 2. And that's how we got this line right here. And then we have to add. 0 and 0 is 0. 8 and 5 is 13. And they carried their 1 up here. And then 1 plus 2 is 3. With this extra remainder 1 is 4. So now our answer, before we figure out the whole decimal thing, this is the final number that we come up with when we do our multiplication and ignore the decimal. Now, our last step is we have to figure out, because the decimal didn't disappear, we just ignored it for a little bit. Now we have to figure out where that decimal goes. So I'm going to show you what you have to count, and they show you right here in this next step. The direction says count the total number of decimal places. Oops, I keep doing that one instead of the highlighter. Count the total number of decimal places. And then you're going to, I'm gonna not have you write down this last part. I'm gonna sum it up for you. Then you're going to do the same number of hops. So just ignore this part. If it makes sense to you, you can use it, but to me, that's a little bit wordy. So we're going to count the total number of decimal places, and we're going to do that same number of hops, and I'll show you exactly what I mean over here on this right side. So we circled the 3 and the 5 because those are after the decimal place right here. So we put a box around the 3 and the 5, and that's 2 numbers that are past the decimal place. Then down here in the 1.8, we only have 1 number past the decimal place. So we add those together. So we have 3 numbers all together that are past the decimal place. That 3 tells us how many hops we have to do. So we pretend that we start with our decimal right here after the ones place, because that's where our decimal always goes, and then we do 3 hops. 1, 2, 3, and look at it, ended up right where they put the decimal. So the total number of numbers past the decimal is how many hops we have to do in our answer. So now our final answer down here, it's 4.230, but we can go ahead and drop that 0, because that 0 at the end, we don't need that. We can just make it 4.23. So that's the 3 steps that we're going to follow every time. Write them up and down, biggest number on top, ignore the decimal while we multiply, and then at the end, we'll go and circle those numbers and figure out how many hops we have to do. So now let's go down and we're going to do one following those steps. Okay, so this is our example, following all 3 of those steps. Let's do, I'm going to write the number 1.473 times 2.31. Sorry, that 2 is not the world's prettiest 2. There. Okay, so now the numbers right now aren't already pretty like they were up in the example. So we have to figure out, how do we need to set these up? So you go up top and it says in our step number 1 that we have to write them up and down, and we have to do the biggest number on top. This one has 4 numbers in it. This one only has 3. So that means I have to put this one on top. So I'm going to go rewrite it over here. 1.473, and then this one 2.31. It's okay that there is like this empty space right here, because we know that there's more digits on top. So there's going to be that space for now, and that's okay. So now our step number 2 says multiply and ignore the decimal. So we're going to do our normal multiplication, which means we're starting with this 1 right here, and we have to multiply it by all of the numbers up above. So 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 4 is 4. And 1 times 1, 1. Now, I always like to make this like a little bit thicker than a regular 0, so it reminds you that's my placeholder. So now 3 is what we're starting with. So I'm gonna star this. We're on to this 3. Now we're doing that one times all the numbers up above. So 3 times 3 is 9. I write that. 3 times 7 is 21, so I have to carry my 2 up there. 3 times 4 is 4, 8, 12, plus that 2 is 14. Carry my 1, and 3 times 1 is 3, plus that 1 is going to be another 4. Now I still have one more to go. In our example, we only had to do it 2 times, but this one we have 3 numbers in the bottom. So I still have to take this 2 and multiply it by all the numbers at the top. So let's start now. We have 2 placeholders because we add 1 each time. So now I have 2 placeholders. And then we're going to go ahead and start with our 2. 2 times that 3 up above. That gets me 6. Oop, I hate that I did that in a different color. Then 2 times 7 is 14. Carry my 1. 2 times 4 is 8. Plus my 1 is, plus my 1 is 9. And then 2 times 1 just leaves me with a 2 right here. Now we're done with all the multiplying, so we go ahead and we do our addition. This side, 3, 0, 0 gives me 3. 7 and 9 gives me 16. Carry my... Okay, so our 1 and our 1 and our 4 gives me 6. Plus another 4 gets me 10. So I'm going to write my 0. Carry my 1. 1 and 4 is 5. Plus 9 is 14. Carry my 1. And 1 and 2 is 3. The most important part in this area, you guys, with the multiplying and adding is that you take your time, because the easiest thing that can happen to make your answer wrong is just simple math mistakes. So make sure that you are looking and making sure that you are checking your work. Okay, so now we have this answer down here, but our last step, step number 3, says that we have to go back in our original numbers and we have to count how many numbers there are past the decimal. So if I look over here at this one, I have 1, 2, 3 here, and I have 1, 2 in this one. So if I have 3 and 2, that means I have 5 total hops I need to do. So I start with my decimal at the end after the ones place, and now I can do 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So my final answer that I'm going to go ahead and rewrite down here is 3.4026. And we box our final answer. And that is it. So we just follow those 3 steps and then we are good to go. Now I know over here on this left side it talks about estimating. That's the first thing that we will talk about when you guys come in class tomorrow is, okay, what if I don't want to use these exact numbers? I want to know how to estimate, like if I was at the grocery store or something like that. So when you get back, we will talk about that and you are set with your notes. Have a good rest of your day.